Good afternoon or good morning to everyone, depending on which end of the country you're on. This is Anne-Marie McElroan, Community Foundations of Canada's Director of Marketing and Communications. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, which is entitled 10 Ways to Improve Your Foundation's Website. I'm very, very excited to have Kirstin Beardsley with us from CanadaHelps. Kirstin's their Marketing and Communications Manager, and she has, this is her second webinar with CFC as part of the CF Links program. And it is such a treat to have Kirstin join us because of her great experience and expertise in website communications and online, all things online, social media as well. I think the last presentation she did for us was on Twitter and various social media tools. So it's just a real treat to have her. Kirstin's been working with CanadaHelps since 2006. And prior to that, some of you may have come across Kirstin while she was working with the Developing Human Resources in the Voluntary Sector project, which is now the Voluntary Sector HR Council. And of course, Kirstin also worked with Community Foundations of Canada, which is where I got to know her. And so she knows our movement very, very well, which is an enormous asset when it comes to any kind of learning opportunity. So Kirstin, welcome, and thank you so much for giving your time and expertise to us today for this presentation.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. And of course, I'm really happy to be here too. I love community foundations, and I am pretty passionate about some of the stuff that you guys are learning about in terms of technology and online tools. So I'm more than happy to be here and talk to you guys today.
That's great.
And what we're going to talk about is the 10 ways to improve your foundation's website.
Great. Yeah, just before, sorry, Kirstin, I should have said just before you got started, I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows you are in listen-only mode right now, and we do that simply to make sure that there's no background noise. So you're free to do what I was doing a couple of minutes ago, which is eating M&Ms. I stopped myself so that there would not be background noise. But you can do that if you want to ask a question, if there's any kind of issue. You will see that there's a chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. Please feel free to type your question into that chat box. I'll be monitoring it throughout the presentation, so you can let me know if you have a question, and then I'll share that with Kirstin for her to answer. Feel free to ask them throughout the presentation. At the end of the presentation, we can also do a Q&A session, and at that time you can raise your hand, and then we can unmute you and you can ask your question via the telephone, or you can use the chat box at that point. Throughout the presentation, we'll ask that you use the chat box. That's going to keep the sound levels nice and constant, and the background noise at a minimum for all. And at the end of the call, if there's time, we'll open it up on a per-person basis. Okay, Kirstin, I'll hand it over to you now.
All right, thank you. So, yeah, let's get started here. So I think websites are one of the most important communications tools that nonprofits and any company really has. And now that the use of the internet in Canada is ubiquitous, I think we need to pay more attention than we ever have to our websites. And I think we're getting all, as organizations, very excited about the new social media tools out there. And, and I think that's really important. I love learning and using all those tools as well. But I think we sometimes forget the usefulness of our websites and how to improve them and how to make, important changes so that this important communications tool is being used most effectively for our organizations. The vast majority of the Canadian population now has internet access at home, and the majority have high-speed internet. We are a tech-savvy population, from our teens to our senior citizens. So we're one of the most connected populations on the planet, and I think that means that we have an opportunity, but also somewhat of a responsibility to make sure our websites are working for the people who visit them. So not only is your website a place to convey information, it's also a place where you go to promote yourselves, what you do. It's where you engage your visitors, and it's also increasingly a place where people complete transactions. So whether or not you offer donations online, it's the place where people sign up for your newsletter or download your vital signs report. So it's a place where people actually go to complete transactions. And yet, as I said, so many of us think of our website as an afterthought. We think, oh yeah, we've got to update the website again, or we're doing a newsletter, we better post it online. And we don't think of it strategically. But when you think about how you use the internet and how often you go online to a company or an organization's site, before you make a purchase or before you meet with someone, you can see that a website is really about building trust and engagement with your organization. There's a huge level of trust that is conveyed when someone first visits your website or repeatedly visits your website, and I think we need to take some time to really think strategically about how to improve our sites and make them better for the people visiting them. And I just want to put up this stat about online giving. I know that community foundations tend not to focus on online giving because online giving is smaller gifts. But I did want to put this up because, this statistic where 72% of Canadians say they plan to donate online this year, I think is a really compelling statistic. It was a little bit surprising when I saw it, and this is very recent, a recent poll done. And I think it speaks to where we are in terms of Canadians' use of the internet and our level of trust in the internet. This number would have been much, much smaller even 2 years ago because people were still kind of building that level of trust with the internet. And I think this number is really, almost 3/4 of Canadians are actually going to donate online this year. And so we're beyond the, the tipping point. Canadians, it's the go-to choice for finding information and for completing transactions. So just a bit, when we think about website users, though, when we think about, who these people are looking at our information, there are some things that we all know about ourselves as website users and other people. We know that they don't read information and they kind of poke at information online. So instead of, logically following the steps that we've carefully laid out for them, they tend to kind of look at the images and look at the links. We know that people are busy and they're in a hurry online and they're very impatient, so they don't have a lot of patience for things that don't work. If something doesn't work, they tend to leave that website. And they are very easily frustrated. So we know that on the one hand that websites are very important, and of course we know that website users are also this kind of hurried, impatient group of people. So how do we make our websites work for this group of people? And I've put together 10 different things that you can do, 10 kind of areas of work that we can look at in terms of improving our site. And the first one I think is the most important. And I think this is a good rule for all of our communications, all of our marketing work, because so much of what we do and write is written really for people internal to our organization. But you need to meet your donors or your supporters or your volunteers or whoever your audiences are where they are. So in the midst of their busy, hectic lives where your organization is really only a passing concern in their lives. And I think too many of us do this. We sit down to talk about our websites and how we're going to, update it and what needs to be on it. And we think the question that we're answering really is, what information do we need to share? And I really want to stress that that's very much the wrong place to start. You want to start with answering the question, who are our audience, what is our audience and what information do they need from us at the end of the day? Why are people coming to our website and how can we present that information that they need in a way that gets that, that it's convenient and easy for them to access?